Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Friend Code. I'm your host, Michael Damiani. This week, I'm joined by two very special guests, JakeJames and Stealth. How's it going, the two of you? Welcome back.
Yo, what's good? Thank you for having me back. It's good to see you both again. It's good to see y'all.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a fun time.
I was very excited about this combination because I personally don't know any of your two's history, but I'd had Stealth on for several episodes, and then JakeJames, when you approached me and you talked about you knew Stealth, and like Stealth like recommended you, and I was like, oh man, like I don't know anything about this, but this is so cool. And I'm like, I'm gonna get both of you on an episode together. So
you got two for the price of one.
yeah.
Like,
So I was like really excited about that. So I'm really glad it worked out that both of you could be on here because, as you know, with Easy Allies, we're like a group of friends as well. So it's like nice to have a lot of people you're familiar with, and have that conversation going and having that just having a fun time talking about games and stuff.
yeah, we're all tangential to each other, which is cool. Again, Stealth's my man. Like, again, I've had Stealth on my channel before talking about Nintendo stuff in the past, which was fun. It was dope. And I had listened to Stealth's other stuff that he's been on various other shows, which is always cool because it's good to just not only get the different perspectives, but see like what everybody else is up to and be like, yo, I know that guy. He's cool. Like, he's dope. It's just fun like that. So it's good that we get to all talk like this too. So I think it's going to work for everybody listening in on this. I think they're going to have a blast with it.
No,
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
a smaller community than people think, and yeah, it's always fun to collaborate.
Always a pleasure. I noticed, excuse me, I noticed the TIE fighter in your corner of your room right there, because you got a lot of cool stuff here.
There's more. I even got a gunblade up there. Like you can see.
Nice.
So I got a lot. So
The reason I gravitate towards the TIE fighter, because we're recording today. It's May 1st. We're almost to Star Wars Day. So
Yes.
I don't know if there's anything you're excited for about. Have they announced anything special that they're doing? Or I haven't really been following it.
So for me personally, it's going to be Star Wars month on my YouTube channel because every year I would always do something special for May the 4th and May the 5th, where basically it's May the 4th be with you and Revenge of the 5th is really the joke. So, but I used to do things like, videos like reviews or whatever that's Star Wars related for those specific days. But this year I'm doing it throughout the whole month. I'm actually making it into a thing for my channel. So I'm doing like a lot of different like reviews and other stuff, different Star Wars games and things like that people will enjoy. But I know for Star Wars stuff specifically, from Star Wars themselves, the Bad Batch comes out on the 4th. And that's like the big thing. It's a double premiere. So it's like 80, what was it, like 60 minutes, I think, or 70 minutes, because there's like two episodes that are going up at the same time, or like one big feature that's brand new Star Wars stuff that takes place after Rebels or after Clone Wars and stuff like that. So that's going to be exciting. And then I'm hoping, at least fingers crossed, and sometime throughout the month, we get to hear about Star Wars Hunters. Because remember, that's supposed to be another game that's coming out for the Switch and other platforms, but we haven't heard anything about it yet. And what better time to talk about something Star Wars related, or at least give us a hint or a tease, then May the 4th. That just makes sense to me. But here's hoping. It's going to be cool.
Jeez, you mentioning the Bad Batch, because I just finished Falcon and the Winter Soldier on the MCU side of things on Disney Plus.
Oh, Loki's coming too.
And I'm like, for Loki, and I'm
month.
like, oh wait, now there's Star Wars stuff, because it's like, I kind of like their scheduling they're doing with that, especially on the MCU side. But
oh yeah,
I honestly know we could talk about MCU and Star Wars, especially if I could get you on with some of the other allies.
I am down.
Jones, Jones and Brad are big Star Wars fans. Huber, massive MCU fan. The other guys, obviously big fans too. So maybe we can make that work out
one day.
But
we'll make it happen.
We're here. We got some Nintendo stuff to talk about too. And in fact, we just had a brand new game just come out. New Pokémon Snap. A game.
I got it somewhere. I got the game. So I got the keys in my collection. I just can't pull it out.
Decades in the making here. And I think all three of us have now had some hands-on time with the final build. Full disclosure, I think I've only played maybe an hour and a half so far. I have not played that much. I'm doing requests. I finally got request unlocked.
Yeah, me too. I'm on the second area.
I haven't even gotten to the second area yet, so that's where I stand. But my question is, how are you two liking it so far?
Yeah, this might be a first, or I'm actually the farthest along. Usually when we talk about new games, I have not played as much as you have. I'm about 6 hours in. I've kind of finished like
Nice.
I finished like the second area, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of like I don't know if an out of body experience is the right word for it, because I have memories of playing the original game and now I'm playing the sequel, but like 20 years have passed.
It's surreal.
So it's just yeah, it's very surreal. The game looks beautiful, has Pokemon from, the entire Pokedex, not just focused on Gen 1, which is when the first game came out, which is, we didn't think it was limiting, but now we just get a wider variety of Pokemon. As a big JRPG guy, the fact that you can level up areas and, you can snap different Pokemon and get different star ranks, and there's a lot of upgrading that really appeals to me. That really appeals to me a lot. Yeah, I mean, I am enjoying it tremendously so far, and already it's just a much meatier experience than the first game because, there's a story happening and there's missions, and yeah, it's just a meatier experience.
No, it's funny you say that because one of the things I didn't get to do that I wish I did was to go back and play a little bit of the original Snap, for compare and contrast. I didn't get to do that there, but one of the things I really do like about this new Pokemon Snap, even though I haven't gone deep into it, is that it does feel like everything, there's a little bit more like quality of life stuff in it that I know people have mentioned in their reviews and like all over the place. But also, this is a very chill game, despite so much stuff that's happening on screen all the time. Like, it's one of those Switch games now that I think comes at a great time because there's a bunch of different things to play at the current moment. But if you just want a game like Animal Crossing, like to chill, this is another one to add onto that list because it looks great, it sounds great. I think that you're not doing much in the way that like there's a lot of crazy action happening at the same time, so you could just kind of like kick back on a weekend and just play it through this. One of the things that I do also like is that not only we got a larger variety of Pokemon, which I think is good because it makes revisiting certain areas really good. Which that's one of the things that I've seen a couple criticisms pop up about this game, that it gets very repetitive, and I understand that. But one of the things that I thought was clever with this one is that even though it gets repetitive where you're visiting the same areas over and over again, there's little details that you're not going to get the first few times around that are very, nuanced for specific areas and especially for specific Pokemon. Because one of the things I was watching today, I was watching another video on YouTube on how to get the Pidgeot in the first area. I think it's at night, to do certain stuff. And I didn't know you had to chuck something at it, which I know was in the original Snap in some way. But now it seems like this is going to be, even more clever in certain areas as you get deeper into it. And I think that's pretty darn cool.
You both mentioned, so there's a lot I want to talk about, but I find it interesting that both of you both said you thought it looked pretty good. I know in earlier trailers there was some feedback that the game didn't look that great or the frame rate, but I have to say, playing it in action, I concur with both of you. Actually, I mean, I'm playing it on the Switch Lite, so maybe it's also the smaller screen versus playing it on a bigger TV. But in handheld mode on a Switch Lite, I think it looks really good, actually.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
I played it more in portable mode, I should say. I didn't play it on the TV as much. I played it mostly in portable mode.
Yeah, and I've been playing almost exclusively on the TV. And there have been a few instances where the screen will lock. I don't know if you've both experienced this, where
Not yet.
yeah, it freezes for a couple seconds, but then it keeps going. I've experienced that a couple times, so that's just
Okay.
something to keep
Is it when
note
you're
of.
scanning? Like, because I think I've seen some people measure that maybe it's like during certain sections when there's a lot in certain areas when you're
Maybe.
scanning.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think the game looks fantastic. The Namco team that worked on this and also Pokken Tournament just
That's right.
did a
Yeah.
great job.
One thing also we should mention too that I think is also interesting about this version of Pokemon Snap, which again, new Pokemon Snap is a sequel, but this iteration of Pokemon Snap, I feel like the behavior of some of the Pokemon is a little bit more natural or a little bit much more smoother and like organic. Because obviously if you go back to the N64 game, things are obviously a lot more rigid because, of the hardware and the way things were developed at the time. But it feels like this one, they made a concerted effort, with the behavior of some of the Pokemon to really make it feel like you're going through an ecosystem, which I think it works out great because considering all the different things that could be happening at the same time, you're not going to get certain shots of certain Pokemon the first few times you go through that run in different areas. I think that's awesome, and it's true to the type of experience that they're going to, because you're not catching Pokemon, so if you're trying to catch them in their natural element. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I really appreciated how the Pokemon were even as early as I'm at in the game, just their animations. it looked very fluid. Just like seeing Pokemon either sleeping or do yeah, you said they looked like they were acting in their natural habitat, and I don't recall the original one too well, but I have to imagine while it might have been like amazing for its time, this is just like light years better in terms of the fluidity of their animation, their motions. And as you said, going back, that was my concern. Let me make this point. I was very concerned where I'm at that it was nice to hear you say that. I'm revisiting these areas a lot now. It feels like I'm gonna have to go back several times, but the different nuanced things you could pick up, the details. And the first thing I did was one of the first requests was to, who's roasting these apples or these plants right here? And it's like, when you go back and do that and you get that shot, it's like, okay, I like this. There are a lot of hidden things in here. And I appreciate that. And there's even an option. I guess maybe I spoiled myself, but I think the trailers made this clear that there are different paths. Apparently, there's an option to say automatically display alternative paths if you want like an assist on that. So I think they did pack a lot of stuff into a small dense area for these levels, which is pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, I haven't unlocked the alternative paths yet, but I did unlock in the first level. It's kind of a shortcut. It's not even like a full split path. It's really just a shortcut around a small area, which is awesome. But yeah, I think that's definitely going to add a lot to the replay value. Like, it really just doubles the levels, basically.
I can't wait to see it because I've yet to see stuff like that. Like, I've seen like the different actions. Obviously, when you revisit, you also get more Pokemon in certain areas as you level up that research level, which I think is great because, again, the more levels you go higher up, the more you're going to see a lot more luscious and much more vibrant areas, which I think is great. It's going to be cool when you go to the later areas. I feel like it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and what's also great is like a really great quality of life feature is you can actually switch between the research levels. So even though if you go from 1 to 2, you can go back to 1 for that like set amount of Pokemon where they go and everything like that. So you're not like stuck to continually progress that way.
Yeah, I found that pretty intriguing and a nice touch actually when they said you could go back and go to a lower rank. And as you said, like having that kind of like RPG system on the levels themselves or how individual courses will evolve as you rank up. I think that's kind of a neat twist on that as well. But the other thing I found interesting was you already mentioned it a little bit, was in your photo album, how like you have 4 different star rankings, and then within each of those they have their own it's like bronze, silver, gold, and diamond.
And platinum, I think it is. Platinum, yeah. No, diamond or platinum or something. Yeah. Like that.
It's nice to see like that improvement and going back and trying to get like a better composition and seeing like the grading. I think that definitely encourages someone like me. I slightly missed the photo here. I know what I need to do. I'm going to go back and get that better ranking, because you can also share it online and like you have your online overall score ranking, and then you can receive like ratings from people, and those medals, I forget what they're called, by uploading your best photos onto the internet.
I like that. Honestly, I really like that. I think that just adds an extra layer. It's not something too intricate to the experience of what you're getting from Pokemon Snap, but it's just extra flavor on top of everything. Like, I like being able to share my photos with other people online, not just in my friends list or just locally like that. I feel like that's another way of implementing online stuff with Nintendo Switch Online in a nice, like, classy way.
You just made me think, JakeJames, and maybe Stealth. You think this is a good idea? Maybe it's unlocked later, and I just don't know this. But the request system would be kind of cool for online, like kind of a more like laid back thing. If people could post personal requests for certain photos online, cool. And you could accept those and try and I think that would be cool update if they haven't done that.
In a way.
And then get bonus like experience for your research level for doing it. Like, that makes sense. That's almost kind of like what you could do with like the custom messages on like a Dark Souls, where you could just post in areas or like send it to other players. To me, that's actually kind of cool. I would love that. That would be dope.
Oh yeah, even like players, they'd be able to leave tips in an area like, hey, try doing this in this spot. And there's some cool ideas like that. Let me ask you both this. They're called fruit fluffs, right? Not the apple things. I forget their name.
Yeah.
Do you ever
Pokemon food.
Do you ever? Yeah. You ever feel guilty throwing it and hitting some of the Pokemon
when they're sleeping? When there's like there's a
spam it,
couple
yeah.
just chucking it at him when he's trying to sleep and is not waking up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, isn't that better than forcing our Pokemon friends to fight? I feel like
Yeah,
throwing
right.
apples at them is a lot less.
But it
You
is
know,
funny.
horrible.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, just like not like you just get the first run through. I'm just like just throwing them
You have
all
to
the-
do it though in order to get certain reaction. I know for the Pidgeot, one of the things that when you throw it at it, it goes and it grabs a Magikarp like nearby, like that. You have to do that in order to get certain actions, which I think is cool, but it is kind of funny, kind of
Yeah.
mean.
Although I did test it out, and I think you can only throw out like 10 apples before like the first one disappears. Like you can't just have like 25 apples on
Just
the screen.
shucking apples.
Because I kept missing it, and I threw out way too many, and they started disappearing. So that's when I knew that was the limit.
Don't you get other stuff like deeper into it? I know at some point
Yeah.
you start getting other things you could throw. Because again, I haven't gone that far yet, but I've seen it in a few
you
places.
get, and I'm probably gonna butcher it because I just got it. You get the Illumina orb, which basically lights up Pokemon, and they do different things if you throw them at them.
Nice.
It's just another thing to throw. But I think that's the only other thing, because like, the top button is the scan, the side button is the snapshot, the bottom button is the apple, and then the left button is the Illumina orb. So I don't think there's anything more than that.
Cool.
Yeah, and everything feels really good to play. As you said, Jake James, it's very casual, laid back. Even like you can even use the motion controls. I mean, I think you actually get a
Oh,
benefit.
I didn't use the gyroscope. I turned that off immediately.
I
Like,
did too,
don't like
but I
using
think
it.
people might get a benefit because of like the quick turn. You can move it a little faster. But like
Sure.
even using both analog sticks to move faster, slower. I'm surprised at how much I'm enjoying this, and I'm playing at a very slow pace, but I think it was meant to be played however you want. Like
Agreed.
just power through it, or just play a track a day. I just went through the course one more time today. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow, and I think that's just fine.
It's funny you say that. I think that a lot of the criticism about it being repetitive is because of that, because people are playing it in long sessions. I feel like if you take this, like maybe you play like an hour or so, like, within a long stretch period, within a given day or within a given week, I think some people who are complaining about that are going to enjoy it more. Because if you just sit it for like a long 2 or 3 hour session, you're revisiting the same spots, seeing the same paths for a while. That's probably why they're feeling like
it
that.
feels like grinding. It's like, I mean, I understand the need. You want to advance, but sometimes might be
chill.
better to move on and try like play another game for a little bit and come back. That might do you some good. I have a patron question here from Cody Spencer about the potential future of Pokemon Snap. New Pokemon Snap seems to be getting some good reviews, and with it being Pokemon, it should sell very well. Do you think this will warrant a sequel from Nintendo, and not in another 12 years?
It wasn't 12; it was like 22.
22.
Yeah, it was a long time.
I read it as them, but
It was a while.
I wonder if I didn't know if there was something special behind 12. Like, was there something I'm missing? 'Cause, I think it was just a typo. So they meant 22 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've spoken about this on Twitter, but the first Pokemon Snap came out when the PlayStation was red hot. If you imagine Japan now, where almost every week 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 of the best-selling games are all Switch games. That's how it was when the original Pokemon Snap came out, but for PlayStation. And Pokemon Snap debuted at number 4, which seems hard to imagine now for any Nintendo game to debut at number 4, especially in Japan. So I just think a part of it at the time was Nintendo, kind of just being dominated by PlayStation and not really being sure if it could be a franchise just because PlayStation was overshadowing everything. Now, honestly, I think new Pokemon Snap could outsell the original in half a year, lifetime, which would be, it wouldn't shock me. And I remember reading an article from IGN how the team tried to bring back Pokemon Snap, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't get it together. And then, because of the relationship that was built between Pokemon Company and Namco due to Pokken Tournament, that, they got the ball rolling again. So, I think if the relationship is still good between Namco and Pokemon Company, I think we could get more games. It's possible.
I agree. I agree. I think also even then, before we even get more games, I think we could get DLC for this game. I think
Oh
if
yeah.
people would be down for it. If it's more new Pokemon, if not a new area or new region, that could totally work with this. And I think also back then, one of the things that you mentioned with the PlayStation, I think that also on top of that, back then we didn't really have a full scope of what Pokemon was outside of what it was on the Game Boy. Looking at Pokemon in a completely different way other than battling. Because remember, Pokemon Stadium was a huge thing. Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 was huge on the N64, and that, again, it was battling. We didn't see Pokemon from a different type of lens that didn't involve battles for a long time until much later, or until Pokemon Snap and then other games that came afterwards. I think now, obviously, since the franchise or just Pokemon in general has become so big, and we've had so many interpretations of what Pokemon and the Pokemon world can be, stuff like that could do very well, and it could be all sorts of like different things. So I think there's a big audience for this, especially within the Pokemon fandom, that would love to see another game. But I even think that they could get DLC. I would love to go to another region on top of this, besides the areas we got in this game, which I haven't visited all of them yet. But imagine being able to go to a region that we know, like Kanto or Johto or any of the other like ones from previous games, but like different probably areas that have those types of generations of Pokemon within them. Like there's a lot of things, a lot of potential they could work with.
Yeah, I definitely think that an expansion pass is likely, like what Sword and Shield got. Because
Or
the
the
Sword
Poké
and
Tournament
Shield-
got.
yeah,
Poké Tournament got the
Shield-
same thing.
Yeah, and it was very successful. So yeah, I could definitely see them adding new stages. It's just a matter of time, in my opinion.
I think it's very likely we will see some kind of DLC or expansion or season pass for new Pokemon Snap. That's pretty good. I liked your explanation there, Stealth. That just a different time, different circumstances, and then people base their assumptions on that and didn't have an outside source or outside viewpoint, which is like I think Namco was for them. Like when Namco came in and said like they just did Pokemon tournaments, like you could work with another studio to do this. You don't have to do this internally. And hey, look, these spin-off Pokemon games have new life now. That maybe this is the time to do it, because it was basically like gave me a sense of optimism that maybe there's some other franchises Nintendo is like, hey, maybe this is the time to try out some stuff again.
Talk about F-Zero they had not too long ago.
Yeah,
I'm
like
just saying,
stuff like that. Also, it's funny.
saying.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I'm just saying that talk about F-Zero they had not too long ago.
Man, if they make a new F-Zero, I'll be very happy. Very, very happy. But Stealth, your thing also got me thinking about like there's such a tight-knit relationship with Nintendo and Bandai Namco. I know it's certain parts of Bandai Namco, but with all the talks, this is a really weird segue into something that wasn't even planned, but like all these talks about acquisitions and mergers in the gaming world, and it's mostly been on Microsoft and Sony's side, and Nintendo really doesn't do this. Nintendo doesn't really do stuff like this, but like the more they work together, I wonder if the Nintendo likes the relationship as it is, or if Nintendo would ever be tempted to go more in and like actually get a bit more invested in Bandai Namco at some point.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo prefers to partner with companies rather than outright buy them. And the funny thing is Namco owned Monolith Soft for a while, and there was, Monolith Soft wasn't happy with the ownership, and Nintendo ownership knew, Namco ownership. They talked, and then all of a sudden, Monolith Soft was a Nintendo studio, and they've always had a good relationship. Obviously, Namco developed Smash Brothers, which is probably like the biggest thing that they could ever be given. But yeah, I mean, Nintendo definitely prefers to partner. Next Level Games, I guess, being their first acquisition since Monolith Soft, I guess the rumor was that Next Level Games was kind of looking for ownership, and Nintendo didn't want them to belong to anybody else. And so they made that deal.
That's what I heard too. Is
sense.
they were making themselves available, and Nintendo's
because
like,
the studio, because the studio that could make like Luigi's Mansion 3, you just can't let that go. So Nintendo made that happen. But yeah, I mean, Nintendo likes to partner. Like, I think of Jupiter, and I don't know if you probably have heard of Jupiter, but they make Picross games. They made Mario Picross on the SNES. They've been working with Nintendo almost exclusively for like 30 years. But Nintendo has no interest in buying them, and Jupiter has no interest in being bought. They just make their games. Basically Nintendo exclusive, but they just prefer to partner with them and not buy them.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got. I'm glad other people share that sentiment. Also, being bought by Nintendo is not always like the best thing. I mean, it can lead to good stuff, but like you saw with Alpha Dream, it's like you could have a bad fate at the end of the the road there.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of weird now where like acquisitions are kind of like idealized and celebrated, but really, we should all want studios to stay independent if they can and grow naturally. And if they want to be exclusive, then that's fine. But I prefer studios to stay independent.
Another game that oddly gets an update in an untimely fashion. So not quite 22 years, but almost 2 years later. I'm talking about Super Mario Party getting a free update, which now allows you to play board game mode and partner party, as well as the previously playable mini games online with friends, or if you want to do a password system, you could set a password. The old 5-1 trick is back for random matchmaking, so if you want to put in 5 1s and spam that, you'll get random matchmaking that way, even though Nintendo will not put random matchmaking in their online games. But hey, it's there. When you play online, it will not save. You'll not save to your data, so it doesn't allow that. But I'm curious. This sounds great, but why now?
It's so
Why
weird.
so long?
It's so weird. Like this is one of those instances where we always say that Nintendo does weird stuff or questionable, like goofy things. This is one of those things because, honest to God, I think everybody could probably be in agreement. Like this should have been from day one because like this seems like something that should have been with any game day one, especially a multiplayer game like Mario Party. Maybe it goes back to stubbornness. Maybe it goes back to they just want to get certain things right. Maybe they wanted to see or engage the response of like players, see if like this was a thing that they should put time and energy into. But at least we got it now. Better late than never, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, this should have happened probably after the first month, not after 2 years, over 2 years. I joked that Nintendo has like a paper, a list, like it actually written out, and they get to it when they get to it, and it just took them 2 years to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. Like it makes the game instantly better. So nobody's complaining about that. But yeah, I mean, this should have happened like a month later. It should have been at launch, as you said. But yeah, I mean, 2 years later was just bizarre to get that dropped like randomly.
Do you think maybe they, obviously this is pure speculation, do you think maybe they also held off on when COVID hit and everything was drastically shifting to online digital? Like it would have been a better time. Is because Animal Crossing was like had just hit and they didn't want jeopardize any of that momentum?
Maybe. My theory was, and this could be off, but maybe they're working on Super Mario Party 2, using the same engine, obviously, and maybe they just implemented it in 2, and then as a nice gesture put it into the original game, because I could honestly see Super Mario Party 2 getting announced at E3 because the game sold like 12 million units. It's a huge seller. So, and we get multiple Mario Party games per system usually, so that wouldn't surprise me if they were working on a sequel in the same engine and kind of just threw us a bone.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense to me. It could also be one of those things that they just didn't think about it back then at the time, or at least didn't care to put enough thought into it, before all this other stuff happened with the pandemic and such. But I just think that you're probably right, honestly.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you before you brought up that theory about the chances of does this mean we're going to get like more DLC for Super Mario Party, but given just the gut here, my gut talking, like your theory makes a lot of sense because yeah, Nintendo was already working on a newer game, which they obviously want to have out. It's like, oh, just add it to the old one. It's like really easy for us to do. We just did the work. That makes so much more sense, which would then make me believe that there's no more DLC for this game because the sequel is what they're focusing on. But is it still a little disappointing that this got absolutely, aside from this, for over 2 years, got no support whatsoever in terms of like DLC add-on content, and it being such a big seller for them?
Yeah, I mean, like you look at Mario Odyssey, no DLC. That baffled me completely. You look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that's gotten. I mean, Mario Tour on mobile has gotten more support than that. So like, Nintendo will support some games and then they won't support others, and it has nothing to do with whether they're successful or not. It's just, you have to be in the heads of the executives to figure out why.
Honestly, it's probably also they're probably seeing some things behind the scenes that we just don't see publicly that make some make baffling decisions like that. Because when you really think about it, when you slice it up, a Mario Party, not just Super Mario Party, but just Mario Party in general, there's a lot of potential to have extra stuff like DLC and other forms of like additional support after release. For other Nintendo characters, other Mario Universe types of characters that you could have people buy in bundles and stuff, kind of like the Avatar stuff for Smash Brothers or additional character packs for Smash Brothers and other things like that. Maybe even additional boards. Like it just writes itself, it feels like. Maybe there was just other things there that they saw for such a long time that probably showed them or at least made them think like, okay, well, maybe people don't care about this specific stuff as much because it just seems like they're just leaving money on the table by not at least addressing or looking into that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a very good point to bring up. The benefit of the doubt is that they probably do have. It would seem too ridiculous for them to just be so haphazard to say, we're arbitrarily doing this, where the more logical explanation is that they have access to data that says, and their interpretation of it is that this makes more sense, and not revealing that what makes a decision is part of it's competitive advantage. They're trying not to I don't know why I never thought of that for some of the stuff they do, but that seems like hopefully that's true though, because
and we'll never hear about it.
Yeah,
that's the weird thing.
You'll never have it confirmed unless you ever work there someday, and then you're never allowed to talk about it, obviously.
Yeah, and the Mario Party team isn't huge. I think they're around 100 to 150, and so maybe they just thought, rather than make DLC, let's just put out a new game in 2 years, and that'll be good enough, and it'll sell 10 million units again.
Yeah. I have a patron question. So regarding games getting these untimely, kind of delayed updates from Logan. Hey, allies, what other games that were released years ago do you think need a super late update like Super Mario Party got? Does anything come to mind?
Trying to think one that would make sense, because the thing that's hard about this is that some games that one would think of have already gone it. Like there was time that passed, but it wasn't like 2 years that passed like that, or some significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think of ones on Switch too.
There are games that I think should have DLC, but like a specific update, a functionality. It's hard to think about.
Well, you did mention Stealth, Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah,
but that's DLC, I guess, rather than a free. So they don't specify free update, but I'm with you on that. It boggled my mind that Odyssey never got anything other than Luigi's Balloon Adventure Hunt or whatever it was called, which was actually for a time was amazing.
Do you guys know if Fire Emblem Three Houses got any DLC? I can't remember.
It did. It got
Ashen
Wolves thing.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's very hard to think of ones that didn't get it already or that need it.
Even Rabbids got a.
I'll say upcoming, Mario Golf Super Rush.
Okay.
Absolutely needs an expansion pass with courses and characters, just like the 3DS game got. That I'll say absolutely has to happen. I know Mario Tennis got free characters and events every once in a while, but I don't think it got a full expansion pass. Mario Golf needs an expansion pass.
Okay. I think that people are hungering a little bit more for Mario. Mario Golf has a little bit more riding on it, I think. And what they I think they're keenly aware there, because that trailer pretty much hit all the marks of what people were asking for. It's all right, you've shown us that you're going to give us the stuff. Now it's will you follow through? And that makes sense. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's some other games that could definitely use, some kind of update that would. But I mean, that's the thing, as you said, stuff. Sometimes Nintendo supports something, sometimes they don't. It has nothing to do with how successful a game is. At times, it's kind of a mystery.
I'm sure it's more of a resource issue internally than anything.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, a game that is definitely getting updates and post-release support, because it is one of the biggest franchises on the rising franchises on the Switch. Monster Hunter Rise hitting that 6 million worldwide sales mark just a little bit into a month after its release. As you recall, opening week, it shipped 4 million units globally. About a little bit over a week later, it broke the 5 million mark. Now it's 6 million. That makes Monster Hunter Rise the 8th best-selling game in Capcom's history. And after it sells a meager 200,000 more copies, it's going to surpass Street Fighter II as the best single-platform title in Capcom history. Just
Wow.
to put that
That's
into
a lot of well
perspective,
done steaks, son. Like for real. Like when you
it's
think about
already
it.
surpassed Street Fighter V's lifetime sales on all platforms, and it is on track to possibly surpass the best-selling Resident Evil game all time, which is currently RE7, which sits at 8.5 million units. That might change once Village comes out. We'll have to see, but this is amazing. And while
That's
it
great.
likely won't top Monster Hunter World's 16.8 million worldwide sales, is very likely that Rise has outsold any individual SKU of Monster Hunter World. So my question to you is, what is the takeaway from Rise's success on Switch?
People love Monster Hunter. That number one, and number two, I think that it also is another one of those games that hit at the right time for everybody, or at least came out around the right time, because the nature of Monster Hunter in general, the co-op, is what really makes that experience like really awesome for a lot of people. I mean, you can still play that game solo and stuff, but like when you get together with a crew and you take down something big, it is very hard to really replicate that type of fun experience for a lot of people.
Yeah, Capcom is really supporting Switch now, like that they have in the past years, but this year with 2 Monster Hunter games, Ghosts and Goblins, Ace Attorney, they're pretty much bringing everything they can to it and reaping the sales benefits. Yeah, I agree with you that Monster Hunter Rise individually won't outsell World together on, all 3 platforms. That's not realistic. But Monster Hunter Rise could get past 10 million, by the end of the year, which I don't think Capcom is complaining about at all. Yeah, I mean, I just think that, Capcom is just seeing what the market is in Japan, which is basically Switch just utterly dominating and putting their biggest game on it and, the most successful system with their most successful franchise, basically, equals success.
It's a W.
Yeah. And this, as you said, it's the sales are going to keep continuing. They have a roadmap. They just, as I alluded to, they recently released version 2.0, added like Apex monsters, some new event quest, and they're going to keep that going and keep players hooked. And it does have a PC release coming later down the line. Maybe it'd be interesting to see what they have planned around that. But I have a patron question regarding just third parties in general after seeing what Monster Hunter Rise has done. This comes from Steve G. Considering now how many franchises have broken sales records on Switch, with Monster Hunter Rise being the latest one, is it surprising to see third-party support still lagging behind PlayStation and Xbox?
Really? Is that the case though?
So that's an assumptive question there. So one, do you even agree with that? To begin with,
I mean, especially like for Japanese third parties, obviously Switch doesn't get everything, but it's getting more than Xbox is. Just in general. I mean, obviously you have, studios like Namco who do put, a few more things on Xbox than even Switch, but, like Square Enix supports Switch just as much as PlayStation. And it's getting more Western support than a Nintendo platform has gotten in a while. So yeah, while it's not getting everything, I think it's getting a lot more than like people expected, especially like 3 years ago looking forward.
Yeah, honestly, like I again, the reason why I say this is because I just feel weirded out because obviously, if you would have said that about the Wii U or specifically the Wii U not too long ago, is because of everything else that was going on with it that you didn't see a lot of games getting ported over to it or at least brought over to that because not many people had a Wii U as much as they do have a Switch right now. I think that's the biggest reason why any company puts their games on any platform or at least that they support it like that is because people have them in the homes, people are buying them, people are at least playing stuff on them. And with Switch, I see a lot of like games I haven't really heard of or seen a lot of like push for that a third party or even indie developers all over the place just putting their games on there. Even with the digital stuff, not the stuff that's in the physical store. There's a lot So it's just weird to hear that statement or that question. It's like I always feel like there is a lot of support, at least right now.
Let me ask this. I think that the presumption stems from the fact that when Stealth, you're saying not every release comes to Switch, that not everyone sometimes regards the AAA games. So sometimes like the bigger, highly marketable games that for past generations were the ones that people cared about being, oh, it plays best on this system, or it's gonna sell best, like the GTA's on PlayStation, or Final Fantasy moving to play, like that stuff. Like for the longest time, Metal Gear wasn't even playable on Nintendo. Then you got like
True.
Twin Snakes finally, like, oh, thank you, but you didn't get 2 or 3 on there. Like, is that like, do you think that's even fair anymore to like really judge that when like a certain big really like if Final Fantasy 16 never comes to Switch, Resident Evil Village never comes to Switch, is that really matter as much anymore when they got something like Rise to fill its place?
No, because there are rumors even of a Resident Evil, a new one coming to Switch. First. And obviously, Final Fantasy 16 isn't coming to Switch, but it's not coming to Xbox either. So, that's kind of an exclusive. And, Square Enix kind of has their own, like, exclusive studio for Switch, with Project Triangle Strategy. So while, it's true that it isn't getting some of the games that the other platforms are, what's different, though, is those studios are putting new exclusives on Switch, too. So that's kind of where it is, and obviously it's a technical issue why Resident Evil Village can't come to Switch. I mean, obviously if they could, I think they would, but they just can't. So, but I think the Switch support is much better than I certainly anticipated it being.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Same thing here.
Exactly, and I don't want to get into this other stuff too much. Obviously, in past episodes we talked about like cloud services, because there's been cloud versions of like higher end games. Why don't they do that? Obviously, whenever the Switch Pro or Switch Success or whichever comes first or whatever's really happening, the rumors about 4K, like obviously things might change in the future. Nintendo might want to go for everything. They might want everything on their platform. But as you said, like I think right now, because I think this question comes up a lot, because obviously, JakeJames, you mentioned like Wii U. You'd expect this question for Wii U, but even during the Wii, when third parties tried to put things on the Wii, it was like a crapshoot. Like some found moderate to decent, good success. A lot of things did not sell well on the Wii that were from third party. So I think there also might be a stigma about the least powerful platform is the one that gets like the worst third party efforts, and like that hasn't. Hopefully, the Switch
also,
is rehabilitating that image.
Honestly, I think it's also, like I said before, I just don't think a lot of people really count indies. I think indies is a huge thing because that's third party. Indies are games that are much smaller, but look at a game like Undertale. Undertale was big on PC and other platforms, but it also got a Switch release. You can say it for a lot of other big indie games that have been put out there. I think at one point, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but like the one that's underwater, Abzu ended up getting a release on the Switch. Like there's all these other games that are third party that made their way to Switch. So there's a ridiculous amount of third party stuff outside of just the Nintendo first parties that you have to select through. So I just think that a lot of those games, most of the time, people don't know about them because they're not pushed out there as much as these other titles that you mentioned before.
Yeah, I mean, Hollow Knight, Silksong, still one of I think is one of the most highly anticipated titles.
Look at the limited run games. The limited run games, all the indie game stuff, all those are on there. For the most part.
Exactly, and that actually stems from like the Wii days with oh my gosh, what were they called again? Stealth? Do you remember, JakeJames?
Nindies, I think.
They're like piecemeal game, like the small digestible bite size. They're called on the
WiiWare.
Thank you,
games.
gosh,
Yep.
WiiWare.
WiiWare
That
games,
initiative, and then like they got like a World of Goo, and they got like a bunch of those early like indie darlings on there. And then everyone else decided like it's indie craze time. Let's go.
But I remember Nintendo had weird rules, like the games had to be a certain size, and that killed everything for a while.
That's why everybody went over to PlayStation with that type of stuff, because I remember it wasn't as strict.
And then they had to spend years winning it back. But speaking of third-party support, and also Capcom being on a roll here, we got another big Capcom announcement, the Great Ace Attorney, a localization announcement for the two 3DS games, the Great Ace Attorney Adventures, I believe, 1 and 2, are now coming to the Switch and PS4 and PC on July 27th, 2021 as the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. As I mentioned, they came out 3DS a little bit late, 2015 and 2017. This is a prequel set in the Victorian era. It is Phoenix Wright's ancestor about their rise to becoming wanting to become a famous lawyer. This new collection's adding a bunch of bonuses. Comes with like full English and Japanese VO. There's going to be extra post-game stories called Escapades. Bunch of unlockables like costumes, music, movies, stuff like that. Also, they're adding an auto advance mode, so if you just want to enjoy the story or you get stuck on a part, it will just play through for you and do what you're supposed to do to help facilitate that. The interesting thing about this, before I ask you if you're excited for this, is that this series, there were fans definitely in the West definitely asking for this to come out. And Capcom made a statement previously saying that due to there are certain circumstances that are preventing a Western release from happening. And now that we've seen the trailer and we've seen the localized name for one of the main characters, I think it's safe to guess what that reason was. I'm talking about the beloved Herlock Sholmes joining the cast.
Oh man. You talk about blunt.
Yeah, and Herlock Sholmes' companion isn't Watson.
Yeah.
I forget. It's
Iris?
a small girl, but
Iris.
it's another name that starts with W. I forget what it is though.
I think it's Iris or
Is it Iris Wilson or something like that?
Yeah,
but it's not Watson.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's not Watson at all. It's like eccentric little like young girl, I guess, when you call them kid. They're obviously older than that, but there had been a lot of like speculation that because if you're not aware, almost all of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's works are now in public domain except for a handful of stories. So the speculation was that the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's estate, people who guard the rights to the remaining ones under copyright, were the ones holding this up, apparently. And by changing a name here, you have to speculate, this is their way. They got around getting around this this copyright law, which I think we were talking about this beforehand, before we started. This seems like a fantastic decision to use this name. It's better than getting the rights to Sherlock Holmes, in my opinion.
It's hilarious. It's way too funny. But I mean, it's great that we're getting it. I mean, that's cool. I've always played the Ace Attorney games much later because I think they're great to enjoy at your own pace, rather than the craziness of the release and stuff. I think it's also some of the things you mentioned, like the auto advance stuff. I think that's perfect for a game like this. When you just want to enjoy the story, you just want to just cruise through it and just take in everything. Because I feel like some people enjoy this style of game more like that as opposed, the way that normally it's played. But it's cool. Hey, more games.
Yeah, this has been a highly requested game, and the one part that disappointed me is this was leaked, on the Taiwan ratings board in February. So many people predicted it was going to be announced at the Nintendo Direct, which happened like a week or two later, and that never happened. But, everyone assumed it was happening because if it's on the ratings board, it's usually pretty solid. I would have loved this just to have been a flat-out surprise, just because everyone was anticipating it so much. But yeah, I mean, I always love it when, unlocalized games get localized. That's just a great decision. And these games are really, really good. They're very, very good. And yeah, as you said, the packages, both games, all the DLC, some extra stuff. And yeah, that's all people really will want. Yeah, I mean, it's a great decision. And, hopefully this leads to, the 4 to 6 trilogy. And because we're missing that. And yeah, I mean, in Japan as well, they're bundling the 1 to 3 trilogy and these games into one big turnabout collection. Nice. I love that box because it has, the new I forget his name, and Phoenix side by side. And it's great. Yeah. So, I hope it sells well. And, we get a new game.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited because it's been a while since I've, been in the Phoenix Wright universe, the Ace Attorney universe. I think was it the third one or the Miles Edgeworth game? One of those was like the last time I'd played an Ace Attorney game, so I'm kind of excited to come back to this, just because like the setting in the past, and kind of like it's an interesting premise, and as I said, although it's like seems like it's gonna be the definitive version of these two games and their extra content. You kind of touched upon this though, Stealth, because like the future of Ace Attorney, a patron question from Megan Leinert. Hey guys, as a huge Ace Attorney fan, nothing delighted me more than seeing the great Ace Attorney announcement. I've been waiting for so long to see these games finally getting localized. It's a dream come true. I'm very curious though, why do you think Capcom went this route instead of just porting the remainder of the 3DS entries to Switch? Sorry. To me, that seems like the easier choice. And then do you think we'll ever see these games come to Switch in the future as well? Which, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is the easier choice, but from a business perspective, nobody in the U.S. has played these games. Some people in the U.S. have played 4 to 6. So from a sales perspective and seeing how high the Ace Attorney series can go, you want to put out games that nobody's played, and nobody's played these. So we'll see exactly how popular the series is versus 4 to 6, which a lot of people did play on 3DS. So yeah, I think that's why they made that decision. Also, this was highly requested. I think it was a fan-driven decision too. Obviously, I think everyone also wants 4 to 6, but they just made the strategic choice to go with the games that nobody's played.
Is there any other entry in this series I'm forgetting that would be a good fit for Switch that you think should come at some point, or it would be nice to see it come to Switch?
I mean, honestly, I think the Miles Edgeworth games, Miles Edgeworth 1 came out on DS and was localized. Miles Edgeworth 2 came out on DS and was not localized. So I think if they bundled those together and marketed the first time ever the localized second game, that would be a good idea too.
Remind me also the Layden Ace Attorney game, right?
Yeah,
the Professor Layton crossover. Yeah,
that was localized.
But is it on Switch? I forget.
No, I don't think it's on Switch though. I think it'd be cool to see that on Switch because again, that was a cool crossover for people.
Yeah, I missed out on that one. Have either of you played that one? Is it actually worth playing?
I heard it's good.
It was fun. Yeah, I don't remember the specifics. It's been a long time, but yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, I feel bad because I love Layden. I played the first 3 Layden games, and I played the first 3 Ace Attorney games plus the first Miles Edgeworth, and that was like it. And like there's been so much since, and I feel so bad. I need to spend, as you said, these because they're broken up into individual stories, like cases or mysteries. They can be played at such a slow pace and you still enjoy them. It's like almost like reading a book, but with the interactive elements, obviously. And I just loved how everything was put together. It was just basically the presentation of both games. I just loved it. Really glad to see them coming back.
For real.
Yeah. We're gonna keep this use a game announcement train rolling, but this one actually isn't a game announcement. Sorry, I was about to say third party, and I almost I was gonna have to issue myself a correction because this once was a third party studio, and we've already talked about it once was owned by a third party company, but now they are squarely in the hands of Nintendo, and they are a very key component of Nintendo, and they announced recently that they are expanding, and that is Monolith Soft. And they are and they announced a large expansion of its staff at the Kyoto studio with nearly 40 new job openings listed.
Nice.
Now, there's been some misinformation about this that's been going around. So, a lot of the initial reports stated that these jobs postings made direct reference to the Legend of Zelda series, and it was thought that this was them doing another round of gearing up for maybe the final push for Breath of the Wild sequel. However, about closer inspection from a lot of users and fans out there who took a closer look, they wanted to point out that all these listings are primarily for the Kyoto studio only. To clarify, Monolith Soft's Tokyo studio is the one currently assisting with Breath of the Wild sequel. Kyoto Studio primarily assists with Animal Crossing and Splatoon and other like support roles. So it would seem that this large expansion would either be for the recently announced Splatoon 3, which is due out by the end of this fiscal year, or perhaps another unannounced project. So I'm curious, yeah, what do you make of this? Do you think it's for Splatoon 3? Do you think it possibly is for something else
Could
we
be.
just haven't heard about?
Could be. Honestly, I think also, like you said, since they also did stuff for Animal Crossing, it could also be other Animal Crossing content on top of that as well, besides all this new stuff. I mean, they could just also try to do things like concurrently or at least simultaneously. That would make sense to me if you want a bigger team to get more done.
Yeah, Monolith Soft has been growing. Like every time they update their employment stats on their website, they're always growing. And yeah, they have multiple studios. One support studio on Zelda, another support studio on Splatoon and Animal Crossing, and then their primary studio on Xenoblade and their original games, which we know they're developing something. So we really don't know what. They might sit in one place, but they might be working on something else. There's really no way to know. I'd like to think they're not so rigid in that, if you live here and you go to this studio, you're working on this. Who knows? Maybe, they want people in other areas working on different things. That's possible to me. But yeah, I mean, they're working on a lot and they're important. That's really the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah, help me with this stealth. Forget the name. It's eluding me at the second, and you'll probably know it. One of the composers, their personal blog, they've been doing updates, and people have been following that closely because they think it might be alluding to the next Xenoblade project in terms of the timing, because they're matching it up with their postings during the release of Xenoblade 2, and kind of there's a lot of speculation that, like, oh, they're doing this big, high-quality orchestra recording, and they're ramping it up, and E3 is coming up, so maybe they're gonna have that announcement. I don't know if you've been following any of that or drawing the same conclusions or anything like that.
Yeah, and forgive me, I forget his name too, but yeah, he has been talking about getting into the studio and composing a big project. And we do know that the head of Monolith Soft said that they're working on a brand new RPG, that they haven't announced yet. Very possible they announce it at E3. That wouldn't surprise me.
Makes sense.
It's Masuda, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah. Nintendo, I mean, they've announced their last bunch of projects at Nintendo Directs. Like, it's not, like, new. So, yeah, I mean, they're due to announce something soon. Whatever their new project is, because they said that the primary studio was, half of them were working on Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, half of them were working on this new project, and now they're all working on this new project. So, would I be surprised if we get a teaser trailer during E3? I wouldn't be at all. It feels like, I mean, they've been working on it for a couple of years now.
Yeah, especially with the Pyra Mythra announcement in Smash Brothers. I mean, that sent the game back into selling out in Japan.
Yeah.
A lot of supplementary materials around that game, like figures and stuff, selling out,
Nice.
So it's like strike while the iron is hot. I mean, Xenoblade has been a series that really has drawn critical acclaim, but hasn't quite blown up sales-wise. It's done very well for what it is, but I think people would be hard-pressed to argue against it. Probably deserves maybe a little bit better for what it is, to be like a bigger brand recognition. And Nintendo's all about pushing that, so I feel like this is all building up towards that big reveal. I think whatever they're doing for the next project, Xenoblade 3 or just new Xenoblade project, I think it's going to be their most massive effort, and I think they're going all out on it. I think this is the one where they're like, if this is ever going to break out beyond, if this is going to attain Fire Emblem status, how Fire Emblem elevated stuff, this is the moment to do it.
Yeah, I agree, because Xenoblade 2 was the best selling out of all the Xeno games, even when they were with Square and with Namco. But that's like 2.5 million units, I think, which is great for a JRPG, but it's not like the top of the JRPG totem pole, and it's certainly not like the top of what Nintendo does. It's kind of just like a very good seller. But yeah, I definitely agree that Xenoblade 3, given the right reveal scenario, giving it a really great trailer during their E3 Direct when everyone's going to be watching that Direct, Yeah, that'll go a long way.
What about Splatoon 3? Do you think Monolith Soft, they might lean a little bit harder on Monolith Soft in any way to maybe elevate that game in any certain way? Because obviously that game, its structure, it's not about being open world necessarily. So like, it's not like that expertise level. But do you think they can be leveraged in any other way to make Splatoon 3 even better? Because I think a lot's also riding on Splatoon 3 because they kind of ran, even though they prolonged it a little bit further than what they said they were, Splatoon 2 kind of wind down a little bit faster than I would have thought for how successful it was, especially in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they could help with the story mode if it's open world. But like, I don't know how they would help other
Okay.
than like be like a support studio in terms of like testing and bugs and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right that Splatoon 3 is very important. Splatoon 2, I think, just past 10, maybe past 12 million units or something like that. It's past 10. But yeah, I mean, Splatoon 3, it could arguably be one of the biggest games in Japan next year.
I think, I mean, also, I mean, we have to expect to see more of it at their E3 Direct. I mean, not guaranteed, but it'd be kind of strange if they passed on that, given it's due out by the end of the
Yeah,
fiscal year.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I can, and this is off topic, but I can see Splatoon 3 not being at E3, just because like Nintendo will want to talk about June to December with maybe a few surprises next year.
Ah,
And they've already
Makes
talked about
sense.
Splatoon 3. So
that's
Splatoon
true.
3, I think it's like a
Yeah.
summer 2022 game. I think that might be a little too far
Oh,
out.
is it summer? I thought.
I thought they just said 2022.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm confused. I'm confusing
yeah,
Arceus.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm confusing
yeah.
the that's
The
due out
Pokemon
by
Legends game. The
yeah,
Pokemon Legends
Pokemon
game.
Legends
Yes,
Arceus.
Splatoon 3 is just
Sorry,
2022, but I
Thank
think it's
you.
going to be summer 2022. It's not early.
You're right. Then there's
That makes
definitely a
sense.
chance we don't see it at
Yeah.
E3 probably.
I'm cool
I
with
mean,
that, to be honest. To be honest with you, because
Yeah.
again, there's like a lot of big things that people won't expect and two would love to see now that they've kind of alluded to it for this E3 presentation at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
I mean, because Nintendo has to talk about what's coming in August, September, October, November, December. They still have the rest of this year. I mean, obviously, Pokemon is probably November, but that's technically being published by Pokemon Company.
Yeah.
They still need to talk about what they're publishing, for the
Everything
second
beyond
half.
Skyward Sword HD needs to be accounted
We
for.
don't
I
know.
mean,
Yeah.
they're anticipating a year that will beat out last year in both hardware units and software volumes just alone, which is a tall order considering Animal Crossing bulk of its sales came like last year. It's probably its biggest year it's going to have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still going to help carry this year, and we got a bunch of big releases early this year, but there's clearly something missing from this picture here, and people, you could assume maybe Breath of the Wild 2 might be that slot in there, but there's no guarantee there's that's even going to happen. And there's a lot of games that I think have question marks, around
They
them.
haven't talked about really.
Yeah, it's like
There's a lot.
what do you have, and like throw in the mix, the Zelda 35th anniversary. That's even gonna be a thing. If that's gonna be talked about then, if that's gonna be saved for later. There's so many things I think that are still announced. I could see Splatoon 3 easily. Like we have time for it later. If it's not coming out this year, we got other things we need to cover for sure. And one of those things might be another leak, another ESRB leak, and another RPG. Although I don't know how well this will do, but it'd be nice to see it do well. That would be Ni no Kuni 2. This will be the Prince edition. ESRB recently leaked it. Stealth pointed out to me that it was actually removed from the search, but the listing is still live. And as you said, these types of leaks generally mean it's coming at some point. It's a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, usually when it's a mistake, like what happened with Life is Strange, where it was listed for every system, including Switch, and then they removed the Switch list, and then they removed it for Switch because they probably just accidentally thought it was coming to everything. When they just make a random listing about a JRPG only coming to Switch, that holds more weight for me. And yeah, like as you said, it's suspicious that they removed the listing from the search, but the website is still live, which makes me think they hid it because announced too early, or they weren't supposed to put that up yet, or something. But yeah, like it's definitely possible because the original Ni no Kuni was ported to Switch by Engine Software a couple years ago, and actually did pretty good on Switch.
Yeah.
It's every time it's on sale, it hits the top of the charts again. And so I would not be surprised if Namco has recruited Engine Software again for the sequel, because Engine Software has experience porting PS4 and PC games to Switch with the Legend of Heroes games and Ys. So they have experience like doing that. So yeah, I mean, I was hoping it was going to happen. I didn't, expect it like this week. But yeah, I mean, I fully expect that to get announced at some point, maybe even E3.
Yeah.
I want, if it's true, I want this to do well. I don't know how well it possibly can do. Obviously, I'm on the side of the fence. Yeah, I have a very controversial stance because I reviewed the game. I gave it a very high score. There are definitely a good amount of people out there who do not think it's better than the first game, that it lost some of the magic because the loss of Studio Ghibli's involvement, also some complaints about the story versus the first one, and obviously the difficulty part's been remedied already. They did an update with that. This game's gotten a lot of support post-release as well, which is actually pretty impressive. So getting kind of like a definitive edition, especially, I'm wondering if there's anything new they could add on top. It's kind of like a cherry on top to entice people who might have passed on this already to give it one last look, because I still think I still stand by it. It's a really good game. I really enjoyed it, and the difficulty now, if you really don't, if easy difficulty just really drives you insane and bores you out of your mind, the hardest difficulty is the game will destroy you. Like I tried it out, and it was like, all right, this boss is gonna take 45 minutes to kill and mess up one mechanic. It's gonna one shot you. I was like, you got what you asked for. And I mean, there's an in between, which is probably the right difficulty that should have started with. But this game offers a lot of unique things in it. I feel like, and I want it to do well because I think there is a little bit of column A from Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, Ni no Kuni 2. And take a little bit of each column, and you can make a almost definitive Ni no Kuni experience. Also, look at the DS game, the original DS game. I think there's some elements from that, and you take that. There's still a lot of opportunity, I think, for Ni no Kuni as a video game series.
Yeah, I mean, because Level 5 was the developer, and they're, to put it nicely, kind of in rough shape.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's just going to be a straight port, all the DLC, and that's what they're going to sell it as, like a Game of the Year edition.
Makes the most sense to me, yeah. Just put everything together and just put it in one package. They've done that with many other games ported over to Switch before, so
yeah,
I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, I guess it just feels bad because even like the movie wasn't that good. I watched it when it came to Netflix. It was like okay, and a nice nod to Oliver in it. Like I think that was like the nicest nice thing I could say about it.
yeah, and in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the original Ni no Kuni was announced for Switch during the E3 2018 presentation.
Yeah.
In one of the like quick reels where Ni no Kuni was in there, and then they announced the PS4 version later at Sony's E3 thing, but it was announced at E3. So I won't be surprised if Ni no Kuni 2 is in Nintendo's Direct in like a quick game reel.
Yeah.
Like other games coming to Switch in some form. Yeah, that makes sense.
Fine. Anything given a chance. I mean, my biggest desire, still, which will now never happen, is getting the DS game localized and ported to Switch would have been like. I mean, I originally wanted it just to be localized, but I still think that game is like definitely worth playing through if you can find the.
Yeah, but don't you need like that book? Like that
but that's like so okay. That's the thing. The first game is, I think it's, for me, it was such a magical experience because it did force you to use that physical. Obviously, the PS4 version, like they digitized it, so you didn't have to have it. But turning in physical pages of book to look up spells to read about the world, like you had to read this thing to know about the game. It was like the most on steroids version of like the old game manual, like in your NES game, where
it's another layer to it.
Yeah, this was like harken back to that, and it was so much effort put into it, and it just combined with the Studio Ghibli cutscenes and the music and everything about it was just like a unique experience. And I feel despite their best efforts, it's just like moved away from that with the sequel, and I think some people care more about. Honestly, what I'm basically trying to tell you is if I can't get the DS game ever ported and localized over here, someday I want a Studio Ghibli video game. It's like, because it's the least likely thing to happen because of Miyazaki's stance on video games. It was such like it was basically oh my gosh, I'm gonna get crucified for not remembering.
I feel like we could talk for like
but
hours about
the
Ghibli.
other head of Studio Ghibli was the one more like the management end of it, was the one responsible for bringing Ni no Kuni a project to them in the first place. It's like, we have to work. We can't just sit here not doing work. So while my animators are doing nothing, we're gonna do this. We're gonna work on this, and but it was just like for animation purposes. They didn't actually do any game design. Like a Castle in the Sky or Nausicaa RPG would be like the dream.
Or a Princess Mononoke action game. Imagine that, right?
They'll never let that happen.
It does sound cool though.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, it does sound pretty cool.
It's just like, those high concept, like these collab. It's like basically Ni no Kuni for me was what people were geeking out about Chrono Trigger back in the 90s. That
Yeah,
like
with
it was
Toriyama.
this collaborative effort that would like is a dream scenario. And but who knows if we'll get another one. Oh well. That's all I got. That was a lot of stuff. Actually, I was very happy. We were getting into this week. I was worried about news, but man, we had a lot of good, smaller things that happened. Next, I'm really excited for next episode though, because next week we are getting the financial report, the fiscal year final report for Nintendo, along with the investor Q&A, and so we'll have a lot to comb through on the next episode.
Talk about.
So that's going to be...
Yeah, and Nintendo is like the only one that actually lists out the sales of their top 10 games.
They actually talk about it.
Sony does hardware. They don't do software.
That's
Microsoft
right.
gives you nothing. But at least Nintendo gives you a little something to chew on.
It's going to be so good to see where everything's moved around. Like, if Animal Crossing is now number 1 overall,
or if Luigi's Mansion has moved into the top 10. That's kind of what I'm hoping happen.
And any of the Q&A stuff, sometimes there are interesting nuggets that come out of those investor questions and answers. So that will definitely be on the docket for the next episode. But I want to thank you both for joining me on this recording on a Saturday. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to all our patrons who submitted questions for this episode of Friend Code. If you want to submit questions for consideration, you need to be a $5 and or up patron. I will make a post calling for your submissions the week we are recording. We also have some special shout-outs for some of our special patrons for the month of April 2021. Let me get that list open right here and get this going. So we got shout-outs to Elthanis, Greg the Dark Knight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, Nick, Stephen Thomason, Edscar, Soma Spider, So What, Sage Mode Q, Alex Al, and Estokel. Sorry, it said edited and it confused me, but sorry. Shout out. Thank you so much to all of your support. Before we wrap up here, anything you guys want to tout or let people know that you're working on? Obviously, you mentioned your Star Wars stuff earlier, Jakejames, but just, let anyone know what's upcoming, or if they want to follow you or anything like that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you guys want to see all the stuff that I do, gaming related, or obviously with Star Wars month coming up now, if you want to see any of that stuff, or you just love games and watching game content, follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/gamerswithgames channel, or just search Jake James Lugo in the search bar. I just hit 2,500 subscribers now. Hopefully I'm still on the road to 10K, trying to like haul in up there. But just check out some of the content. There's content going up on May the 4th, and then throughout the rest of the month, there's a lot of other game reviews and other gaming discussions, other Star Wars discussions, a whole bunch of stuff there. And follow me on Twitter at JakeJamesLugo. Just come say hi. I'm always on there posting up stuff, posting up my progress on Pokémon Snap and a whole bunch of other things. Just come be cool.
And I am on Twitter. That's where you can find me primarily. At Stealth4DK, where I talk about Nintendo and JRPGs and just try not to get into trouble.
We are just 6 weeks away from E3.
Oh, man.
So
It's gonna be the digital E3.
yeah. So are you actually excited for what E3 is going to be this year?
I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm excited to watch it because this is going to be very different in light of everything that's going on. Because E3's been gone for a year, obviously. But it's going to be interesting to see how E3 handles this digital event and who is actually going to show their hand and actually show some stuff. Because everybody, in some form, they're going to have some sort of digital presentation in some way, whether it's a direct, whether it's the state of plays, whether it's whatever. But I'm hoping they actually show stuff and actually give us some good things to chew on for that week or that month, especially whenever they decide to post things up. But it's exciting. There's some good things to be looking forward to.
Yeah, it wasn't the same last year without an E3 Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, right.
People look forward to those, and they're usually mind-blowingly good. The 2019 E3 Direct, I think, was maybe their best Direct ever.
I was in that audience. I was in the audience right outside the floor there, and I was watching with a bunch of Nintendo fans and content creators, and we were wilding out. So it was fun.
Yeah, so it just wasn't the same last year. And, we know E3 will have Nintendo, Microsoft, Square Enix, I think. Maybe not, but...
No PlayStation stuff, I don't think, right?
Yeah,
or no,
there's no PlayStation.
Yeah. We don't like PlayStation. Who knows if they'll go before E3 after? As said, Konami announced they bunch of project they're working on, but not say anything. But who knows? Maybe that's like misdirection. Maybe they aren't attending, but one of their projects shows up in another thing. It's just good, as you said, to have a focused event again. Even if it's not in person, we're not going to play the games. It's just like the announcements are always the fun part, and it's like honestly, if everyone just does like treehouse style like live afterwards, each of all the publishers.
What I don't want though?
Oh,
I don't want though? I don't want it like summer of gaming or the Summer Games Festival. If you remember that last year, that was like our replacement E3 almost. I don't want it like that because that felt very unimportant. It felt like not a lot of people paid attention to it or even cared to pay attention to it. So I'm hoping with this one we get a little bit much more, hype but excitement kind of geared up for it.
Definitely more focused because it has the dates. It's starting on an earlier It's starting earlier in the week and running, to a different time. But otherwise, it is confined to its usual week time frame. So that's kind of nice to have that part of it. And obviously, I think we've had one confirmation so far, right? Was it? One publisher has said, Ubisoft, right? Announced their thing.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean,
I'm trying to remember if that was public or not.
Forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
just want to make sure that it wasn't like a private.
That's
the only thing I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, and Microsoft and Nintendo both tweeted that they're going to be there, which means a direct of some kind.
Yeah. Exactly.
They just have to give a date, and usually Nintendo does it a little bit closer.
Like the last minute right before.
We expect, and usually they kick things off. Like they used to, it used to be everybody, and then Nintendo would do their direct like the day the floor opened.
The
floor opened. That. Obviously, that's not going to be the case now. So I wonder when they want to slot their direct in. But yeah, just the fact that we know basically there's going to be Microsoft Direct and there's going to be Nintendo Direct. It's going to be instantly better than last year.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Who knows if EA do the EA Play thing again? It might not be a part of E3, but it might be like right preceding it. Square Enix already confirmed they're doing a Summer Square Enix Presents. Might be very likely it runs during that week as well in the conference days or whatever they want to call them. But very excited because as I said, next episode in 2 weeks from now, that episode will be the financial report episode and any other news. But then the episode right after that is going to be a big E3 speculation episode. I always love those. They always also go very long too. But I guess it's nice to be excited. Looking forward to. A big event again because like that earlier direct, like that was the kick I needed.
We didn't have a direct for over a year, a
we
main
started
direct
for one
prior to that, and I mean, it's just fun to have those again. The indie directs are nice and the Pokemon directs are nice. The partner directs actually did reveal some good stuff. But just the excitement of a main Nintendo Direct still can't be beat.
I agree. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Friend Code. Until next time, everybody, may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.